We've been documenting our experiments with chicken composting for over 4 years now, and things have evolved quite a bit, and we're at a stage here in mid-summer of 2018 where we're hitting a stride with the flow system of how materials coming into the system, how our now almost 60 chickens are interacting with it, and how it leaves the system. And I thought I'd share notes with folks on the evolution of our process up until now. Something we're definitely learning, and this might be a no-brainer to most folks, as we're increasing our number of chickens, and again we're near 60 now, it's a lot of chickens, we need a lot more food for them, but we also need more space for them to interact. That, coupled with the heat of the summer, if we were to have one small pipeline of incoming food scraps and sprouted grains that they're turning, it would get so hot that they would be unable to interact with it. So what we're doing now is we have new raw food scraps, restaurant food scraps and catering food scraps coming in to a bay in the back here. And we're going to go and talk about that in more detail. And from there it moves into what I'm calling the finishing pipeline, where we have compost that's being prompted for the chickens to interact with it further, because this is where we're introducing sprouted grains. So let's break down these two systems. So it's a pretty raw looking scene, I get that. Well, it's raw food scraps, what are you going to do? But what we're doing here, which I feel like has been very, very functional, is earlier in the season, late winter, early spring, we had some friends dump off 2 dump truck loads of wood chips, about 20 cubic yards. And Sasha and I moved them all in wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow and laid out a 2-foot thick pad of wood chips in this area. And what we can do now is, as raw food scraps are coming in, we're dumping it on top of those wood chips. Now we've been interacting with it here for a few months, so all the juices that have been soaking through have charged the wood chips, and now they're breaking down very actively. And what we do is lay it out in a broad way for them to be able to eat it directly for a day or two. Once they've lost interest in that, we start the process of moving that material down through the pipeline. We'll pile it up a little bit. What we find is that every time we pile up a mound, the amount of interaction from the chickens generally increases. It really stimulates them to work. Now they ate a lot this morning, so we're not going to see them at a frenzied pace. It's probably a good sign that they're not eating with fervor because they're well fed enough. In this area, we have 3 compost rings that, as we interact with bigger chunks of material that they're not going to be interested in, we segregate them out to decompose in a standard compost ring upslope here. And this can break down slowly, mesophilic decomposition, and then in a few months we can pull the ring and they'll work it over and most of that material have broken down. From here, once it's been in this pipeline for a while and it's broken down a bit, we can move it. And normally we move it down in wheelbarrow form. We move it down to this area where we introduce sprouted grain. And now, so food scraps and wood chips from that back end get to this state in about 10 days. By being spread out here a little bit, the heat starts to dissipate, so the chickens can really interact with this more, start really breaking it down. And we get our we get our grain. Some we buy, the millet, sunflower we buy. The rest is grain that we barter for with friends. So there's whole wheat, there's cracked corn, all that. And
we soak it with rainwater in buckets, like every other day we soak, so.
Yeah, and in the wintertime we'll add seaweed and other minerals and things sometimes.
I add seaweed in the summer.
Oh, in the summer too. Sasha's our soaking master in this whole operation, so she knows what's going on with that. So they'll work on this for a bit. The milk crates here make a simple separation between this stage of the compost and the true finishing compost. Now this pile represents about 15 to 20 days from the raw food scraps and wood chips in the back end to here. And at this point, we don't add as much grain or any because we want to have this exit within about a week to our gardens as a side dressing or as a mulch, and we don't want a huge seed load. But you can see there's still enough sprouts in this material to be encouraging for chickens to come and interact. So there's a big sprouted corn. It's warm, but it's not piping hot, so the chickens can interact with it. You can see some of them down here scratching where I just piled. It's a pretty underwhelming performance this morning. They're actually all under the coop because it's raining a little and they're being a little prima donna style. But what's nice with these milk crates is as we get bits that we want to sift out, it's very easy to throw them in. So it makes a separation, but it also makes a way for us to sift in an informal way. This is pretty well sifted at this point. And once these are full, we just dump them at the beginning of the pipeline again. So nothing too complex or fancy, but it's a more open area. We're occupying more surface area, and we're segregating the areas of compost more, so our chickens can interact in a broader way. There's more diversity of what they can eat, and we're getting compost. You can see kind sir standing on a pile. In about a day or two, I'll take that out as mulch. That's 20 days from raw food scraps and wood chips to this. This is not finished compost. This is not completely sifted and all that. It's got wood chips. We can sift it however much we want, but for mulch and for midsummer side dressing in the garden, it's working incredibly well for us. So that's our system in late July. Thanks for watching this longer, more detailed video. If there's interest in key parts of this system, let us know. I'm happy to make more detailed videos on certain aspects if it's helpful to you. Just a bonus note or a side note. I mentioned before about using it as a mulch and a side dressing. A trial that we're doing now that is really stunning me that it's working, but it is that we're able to take wheelbarrow loads of this material 20 days, 30 days from the beginning, dump it out on garden beds that we know we want to develop in the future. And in this case, I seeded it out to a brassica mix. Made a beautiful barter with Fruition Seeds, really cool local seed company. They gave me about 10 pounds of their sweepings of their brassicas, their kale family, mustard family. And this compost, as raw as it is making an incredible seed bed for them. And the other trial that's working well so far is dumping this, by all accounts, raw, unfinished compost. In this case, I dumped it about a foot thick and simply put transplants of, in this case, chard and cucumbers, watered them in deeply and mulched with sawdust, and they're growing lovely. So what an amazing pipeline system there. I don't think I'd recommend raw 20 to 30 day old compost in the garden to most folks, but it seems to be working for us. And even the squirrels are enjoying digging through it and excavating out the stray. We're learning with squirrels around. You gotta come back and replant periodically, but that's not a big deal. Anyway, thanks for watching.